What's good, everybody? It's Smoove with Smoove Creations bringing you episode 5 of the Custom Sneaker Podcast. So welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. And in today's episode, we're joined with a very special and talented guest who was a recent winner of MTV Sneaker Wars. Today, we've got Jill Forie, the founder of Sneaker Swim Kicks. So Jill, I'll really just let you, introduce yourself, and as always, just talk about how you got into customizing shoes.
It's funny. I get asked this question a lot, and I'm like, when is like the origin story?
Right.
It really comes down to, kind of just doodling in high school, like just sitting in class bored on my shoes, and then finding an interest in like clothing that looked hand painted and like had style to it, but like something about what I was seeing in stores, I wasn't really like that interesting to me, or I couldn't really afford it. So I was like, well, I can kind of draw, so let me see what happens. And at the time, I was in high school, I wore a lot of Converse and Vans, which I still do, but I would just kind of doodle on my shoes and then be like, that actually looks pretty cool. And then, a friend would ask for a pair, and just kind of snowballed from there.
Got you. And was art always your thing? Like, were you always just somebody who was drawing or real artistic, or was it something you had to like work at?
I grew up around art. My mom is an artist. She wasn't like a working artist professionally, but she has like such a strong love for it. She does now that she's retired. But so I was always in museums growing up. It was, in New York, right outside of the city on Long Island. So like I've spent so much time in New York City. Like that's where my art culture came from. So like, what better place, honestly.
Gotcha.
So I was really lucky in that regard, because like I grew up immersed in every style of art that there was. But as far as like making art, like, I liked it like any other kid does, like making random paintings and crafts and drawing. But I didn't really have a skill for it until later on. Yeah.
Okay, got you. And then when did you know that, like, so for me, I started before growing up, like I used to just like any other kid, I used to doodle on paper and stuff like that, but it was never like serious, and I didn't like take it serious at all. And I kind of got out of that. And then years later, I started pursuing custom shoes. So like, when did you know that this was like, hey, this is something I'm going to start doing? Was it just people saw your shoes and then you just got a bunch of people asking you to customize, or like, how did you know custom shoes was something you wanted to do?
Yeah. I haven't thought about this in a while. It happened fast, right? Like, so I'm really fortunate that it did happen fast, because we're talking, I started this in 2009-ish. At this point I was in college, and I decided, like, I was making a lot of artwork. I was, in a lot of art classes and I decided I was making my own shoes, and I was making them for friends. And I was like, a little light bulb went off, and I was like, I have a lot of friends who are in the music industry. And at that time, people who were in like, like DIY type of bands, like punk bands, hardcore bands, but some of them were like kind of on the rise. So I was just like, how can I help you help me? And then so like I would make shoes for them. A lot of friends that were in bands that were going on tour, like my one friend Ryan, he was in this band called the Swellers, and I made him this pair of Batman shoes, and they ended up going on tour with Paramore. And at the time, Paramore was like the thing. So Haley from Paramore had saw the shoes, and she had gotten a pair, and then I think it was a MySpace post her, and it just shot through the roof from there. And it's literally been sustaining itself ever since.
Okay, got you. And I know in your episode, I noticed one thing that was really cool is that you said you're a teacher by day and a sneaker customizer at night. So I was just curious, like, because I don't think any other customizer, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure any other customizer also teaches art as well. So I didn't know, like, what is it difficult, being a teacher as well as a customizer? Like, kind of what was the struggle with that, or the experience?
I wouldn't say it's a struggle. There's definitely a lot of time management and project management. I've been juggling two things at once since I started this. I've only done customizing full time for about 2 years out of this 11-year chapter. I know how to juggle both things. Teaching full time is definitely my priority when it comes to like, well, there's really no choice, I teach kids, and but I'm trying to figure like how I juggle it is just time management. And like when I come home, I work at home. Like I know lot of teachers will bring stuff to grade. They bring this whole energy back home with them. And I can't do that. You know, I teach 600 kids.
Okay. Wow.
Just, they stay at work and I love them more than anything, but I need to make it for myself. And that's another thing that I tell them all the time. I always tell them, I'm like, it'd be so unfair for me to sit here and tell you to make all this work if I wasn't making work as well, and have these like real life kind of anecdotes to share with them about like the struggles that I go through when I hit block and stuff. So it's actually really rewarding juggling both things. And you know, our teachers, they have a wide range of reputations. So like I like knowing like I'm a working artist art teacher.
Okay.
You know? So it's not like that whole like, well, if you can't do, teach type of thing.
Do you like, do your students know that you customize shoes, or is that like part of your curriculum or anything like that?
I think it has gotten me every job I've had.
Wow.
It's funny because that is a thing where when you become a teacher, that becomes your whole life. And a lot of people, you know, it's hard to juggle another kind of like a side hustle. I don't really want to side hustle because this was first, right? It came from teaching. But it's something that people are always really gravitate towards, and kids love it. I've taught since teaching, I've taught everyone from preschoolers to college. So like everyone wears shoes for starters,
right?
And everyone, whether they admit it or not, wants to stand out, and they want to have something no one else has.
Right.
So it's always like it's a really good hook.
No, that's a really cool. I don't know. That was just a unique story. Once I heard that, I was like, man, that's awesome that she's even an art teacher and can even teach kids, or just show them like, hey, this is what I do on the side.
Yeah, and it's also nice because, you know, maybe you heard it growing up too, where like you consider going into the arts and people are like,
yeah,
do that, like, and it's like I don't believe in telling kids like don't do something because you're not going to make money out of it. Like this day and age, anything can happen.
Right.
How you hustle and make money. So it's interesting. So I'm always pushing them. And then like something with like the show, for example, like having them watch the episode. The first time I watched the episode was with a group of 12-year-olds. Like I didn't watch it beforehand. I watched it with them. And I'm just sitting there in the back of the classroom like, I probably screened this. I don't know what's going to happen. They were so hyped. And I was just like, you know what? Even if I didn't win, they were like, so excited that I was like, this is awesome.
I bet you instantly became the coolest teacher. Being on MTV, no, that's.
They never like to admit it. My kids love to make fun of me.
Yeah. So speaking of that, so I know that you recently were able to win. So congratulations. But I didn't know if you could just tell me like what that experience was entirely. How was that?
It was cool. Like the entire experience, and it's funny because I talked to a few people who have been on the show, and we've all had kind of the same experience where we were first contacted. We were like, this is not real.
Okay.
You get these, you know, you get an email for an offer about things, and like that's the internet is these offers, right? So it was funny how almost everybody across the board was like, yeah, we thought it was some BS, and then we pushed it a little further to see what happens. And once we all realized that it was legit,
even from MTV, like I guess you saw like MTV and you were like, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, because it's also the pilot series. Like, so it's like we're pitching this show. We don't know, like blah, blah, blah. And it was a lot of like unknowns. It was a lot of like, we would love your input. So I was just like,
Yeah. Okay.
But then it ended up working out. So, you know, I always say like, have a little bit of curiosity. Don't believe everything everyone says, but yeah. So with the show, it was, I'm always down for a good story and a good experience. And it literally like, you know, it was taped nearby. I took a day off of work. You know, I had like all these general ideas of what was going to happen, but the day itself of shooting like blew me out of the water. Like I did nothing what I expected.
Okay. So you had no idea what the theme would, like you had no idea you'd be doing an Easter theme at all, or was it just, did they prep y'all, or did y'all just go in there like had no idea?
So they had discussed, like they got on video chats like this, like with everybody, like kind of screening how you did on camera or whatever. And then they also kind of were filtering through different ideas. And I think they wanted to hear professionals, I guess, of like, whoa, that would never work or not.
Right.
So we had like a list of general ideas and a list of shoes that were possibilities. A lot of the things were eliminated from what I remember if I go back and look at the list, but didn't know exactly what we were walking into.
Okay. And so how did you, like, how much time did y'all have? Like, how did you come up with your design? Because I couldn't, like, I was watching that and I was like, if somebody gave me like, I don't know, like an hour, like I like to think about what I'm going to do. And then like I have stencils and I have different materials that I use. So like, how are you guys able to come up with your design in a short time, it seemed like?
Well, I think that's where the challenge of the show comes, right? Like, it's also, I think, why my shoe looks the way that it did. Like, I like my shoe, but like I could have done more, you know. But that's the challenge of it, and I keep comparing it to the show Chopped with like the cookie, where it's like,
right,
gotta make this work with the most ridiculous ingredients of all time. So it's like it was very similar to that in the like there's no time for nerves. That's why I think episodes 2, you notice like everyone working is super quiet and like super filled in. I mean, I think that's kind of how artists are as in general, but
I noticed they were trying to ask y'all like, what do you think about hype beast?
Yeah, it was,
and you guys weren't really trying
like,
to answer.
We were only the second episode to tape and like to record, and it was funny because like you could tell the judges were kind of getting a feel for each other as well. Like they probably knew. I think Brittany and Concita knew each other prior, but I'm not sure. Like, you know, it's a different environment, a different vibe, and everyone just kind of like, all right, how do we make this? Because I'm like, if you get a bunch of artists in the room, we can all very happily sit quietly for 8 hours. So it was definitely interesting to do that. But yeah, so we got in, and it was basically everything right there. Get to work.
And so I know one thing I noticed on your episode was that you stated that you prefer to customize on canvas shoes, and you were even also dubbed like Queen of Canvas. So I was wondering what makes you really enjoy customizing canvas shoes so much.
I think that's the world that I come from is bands, right? So like there's different elements of sneaker culture, and bands was just the little world that I had gotten invested in, I guess, at a young age, and I really enjoy that style of shoe. That's what I wear. And then since customizing over the years, I've kind of dabbled in other areas, but I've still always kind of stayed in my lane, so to speak. I've actually gotten I have a close friend who writes for Complex, and he was writing like a article about like sneaker customizers you should know about, and he texted me. He's like, "Am I allowed to include you in this?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Of course, it's Complex. I want to be in this. And then but like you customize Vans, and those aren't really sneakers. And I was just like, come on.
Yeah, that's tough.
So it's like, and then we got into like a whole discussion. He also likes to just bust my chop. So but then I started thinking about, this was years ago. So I was just like, well, what does it mean to be a customizer? What does it mean to like be included in this label or this world? So it's funny because then when that other article came out, I think it was XXL that dubbed me the queen of this. I read that and I was like, hell yeah, like I'll take that title, because it's, you know, now it's, you know, a dime a dozen to customize Vans. Like, humongous world of people that I get discouraged with sometimes, but then I'm like, you know, hell yeah, do your thing. So like those are still my favorite shoes to wear, my favorite shoes to paint on, because they're canvas, right? It's like regular painting that goes on the wall. But lately I'm starting to break away a little.
Got you. So was it, so I guess being dubbed and really receiving notoriety for customizing canvas shoes, do you think you were doing it before it was like popular, or is your style, and I know this is like kind of just like a toot your own horn, but I didn't know if it was because of your style, or were you just one of the first to do it?
I mean, it's like such like a hipster mentality. Like I was doing it beforehand, but I guess I'm also older in regards to like this customizing boom. I'm not old by any means, but you know, 11 years ago, this was not a thing.
Right.
You know, people were dabbling in it, I'm sure, but nobody. I can't say that it was like
taking it serious.
Search on Instagram or any social media and find 1,000 accounts of different people doing this stuff. So I think I was one of maybe like 5. We had this like Facebook/MySpace group of customizers, which is funny because like Mosh was in there and like all these huge names now that were in there. So that's how I got started, was kind of just finding people, like literally digging through the internet to have to like use as resources or talk shop.
Right.
So it's interesting. So I guess you could say that I'm one of the first.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's it was really interesting how you said you were digging through the internet, because like me, I think one of the reasons like when I was starting that I'm like really happy and just blessed that I was able to have is that when I started, so I started in 2017, so I mean it's bigger now, but it was still like in a huge surge once I started. So I had many people to go to, and I had so many tutorials to go through. Like I used to watch Serato or the Jesus Custom Footwear is a big one, or even Angelus. Like they came out with a bunch of stuff. So who was your like go-to, like, because you said you started, I think you said 11 years ago, and YouTube wasn't even as big as it is now. So who was your like number one person that you would go to for tutorials if you even watched any?
It was, well, we had this group called Painter Thread. It still technically exists, but it was very much more like this tight-knit group back in the day. And then I would utilize, I was a huge fan, still am a huge fan of the work by Amanda, Yoa Customs. I'm not sure if she's even still working, but I remember seeing her stuff years and years ago, and I was just like, I want to do that. And then also just being another female in this very still even more so male dominated world was really cool. And then I would always talk with Evan McPherson, who ran Revive Customs. So he just makes shoes from scratch, he's
selling them together.
Incredible. So, and it was funny because a lot of people were scattered around the country, and so I was trying to. And I'm one of those people that I can't watch a tutorial. I can't watch some computer and like really learn from it. I'm just very like hands-on. I'm very like, I like to be there. So I was like, who's in New York? So Evan was in New York, and we would meet up a bunch, and Andrew Lissane, who was writing for Complex, we would meet up, and just a few other people here and there. But then like, you have Dominic, who's the shoe surgeon, who's like the king of this world now. Like he was in that group. Same thing with Mosh. Like, so it's really awesome to like go back and see where these people have taken this.
Yeah, no, he is the shoe surgeon. He's legit. He's probably like one of the biggest for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
So after your episode and after you won your trophy, did you get an increase in orders, or did you see like more notoriety or more followers or anything like that?
A little bit, nothing crazy. I've had a lot more people like in this regard reach out to me in regard of like people who really love customizing or really wanting to know more about the art of it and knowing about where you like your starting story and like all this stuff, which I actually like so much better. The orders come, right? Like this isn't my only source of income. So I'm not reliant on that. So I really love like just talking about all this stuff with people and like hearing about what people are doing as well. And like, that's something we had said the day we were shooting it was me, Jamil, Justin, Mike from the first episode for the Cyberpunk episode. And then Wally and Shane came eventually because they shot 3 episodes in one day. And it was just everybody in the same room. And we were all just like, we don't care about like the show and promoting ourselves. Like we want you do, like, what is your studio? Like, what do you like? What's your style like? And we just like kind of nerding out on that. So I was just, this is nice because as huge as it is on social media, like actually talking with people is a rare thing. And like really talking about like the love for what you're making. That for me has been like the most rewarding part of the show itself.
Yeah, no, that was honestly that makes a lot of sense because because this is the 5th episode of the podcast, and a lot of the people that I've had on here were people that I was watching like for so many years, and then when they got on here, I was like, oh hey, like I've been watching you for the past like 2 to 3 years, but it's really cool. It was just really cool to being able to like sit and talk to them and see like kind of like what you said, what's your studio, what's your style like. And really just like kind of building that community that you don't really see on Instagram. Because I know a lot of times it kind of like seems like, or at least some customizers, it seems like they're like competing or maybe they like kind of just steal people's designs. Or I've even had somebody like literally steal my whole entire picture before. And like, so I don't know. I just think it's really interesting just being able to talk to people. And a lot of times it's not really just competing. It's really just seeing what other people are doing and seeing what's out there.
Totally. And it's, I mean, I consider it nothing but love between, I mean, there is an element of competition if you want, like, obviously like if he's going to order something we can both do, like I'm money, but you know, I that's why I was so stoked / nervous once I realized I was partnered up with Jamil for the episode, because I was like, that's another thing we had all discussed too. We were like, you know, who's going to be on this show? Like, I don't, and it sounds really like kind of obnoxious or maybe elitist to be like, I don't want to be against somebody who is just kind of going on, to put it the nicest way. So when I didn't know who I was against until I saw him, and I didn't know what Jamil looked like, but I knew his work, and he had issues with him. And I saw him, I was like, oh shit. Because I was like, this guy can paint. Like, and you know, like you work in your little bubble, and you're like, you're selling all these shoes, and you're, I got this. Like I'm good at what I do. And like, I do have confidence, and I think I'm pretty good at what I do, but I'm like, damn, but he's also really good at what he does.
Right.
So that was another awesome thing about the show. They did a really good job casting everyone that they found, because everybody there is just like a powerhouse. So that's been cool. And like, we were all kind of worried we were just gonna like, who we were gonna be partnered up against.
Yeah, no, that was one thing that like I really applaud them on, is because it seemed like they partnered people who were very artistic with people who were more into like deconstructing or to different colorways. So that was one thing that I really noticed. But my next question was, so in your bio on Instagram, one thing I found really interesting is that you said no repeats, no hype beast designs. And so my question was like, what makes you only want to do, you know, those, or not want to do those sort of customs?
This is funny, because I think this is also a reason that they put me on the show. They cut that little behind the scenes tip. During the show, Brittany she asks me like, oh, well, like, you know, what's your thing with hypebeast? Like, isn't this a hypebeast shoe? And then I said like the thing about the Yeezy, and like, of course it is a hypebeast shoe, but like, I didn't look at it like that. Like I'm actually like, I'm not a sneakerhead by any means, right? Like I love the culture, like shoes. I think, more power to you if you do. It's just not my thing. Like I just enjoy the culture of it. I enjoy the artistry of it. So like that's I got hooked. So when it comes to like hypebeast stuff and like repeating designs, I vowed that to myself that was not the artist that I wanted to be, like, you know, and I don't shame it for anybody else. Just for me, it's like, you're never going to see me put a Supreme logo on a pair of shoes. You're never going to see some Louis, and you're never going to see me print out a stencil or cut out a stencil. And not because, I think I'm better. Like, I think that there's definitely an artistry within all that, of course. Supreme are the most like evil geniuses of our modern culture. And I say that with a lot of feelings, but anyway, I think, you know, that of itself is its own art, but when it comes to what you're going to get out of me, it's not going to be any of that. And people might think that's like, oh, well, you know, she's like looking down on stencils, whatever. And like, hell no, like stencils are a pain in the ass. Like
they really are.
Work. Like doing all that is its own form of art. And like, it's the same way, like, you know, one artist, say like a painter on canvas, like they have one style and someone else is another. Doesn't mean they have to do it the way everyone else is doing it. And then same thing with like repeating a design. Like I look at them as their own little individual works of art, and then that's it. Like you can repeat the theme, but like I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I saw this pair, like, can I get them? And I'm like, no. But we can do the same theme, and we can kind of mix it up and like do something similar. But you know, that's I think a custom is that like it doesn't exist again.
Right. And I think that's what's really interesting, because a lot of times for me, anytime I get like a Louis Vuitton Supreme custom, I'm like, man, I guess, like, I don't know, like it's just not as fun, because you don't really get to sit there and think about what you can mix together, or what you can really make a whole different type of art piece out of it. And so like I even have like an Etsy store, and a lot of times I'll get the same customs, and I'll be like, man, like I kind of just don't even want to. I'm just kind of sick of doing the same design. And so like, and everybody, that Louis Vuitton Supreme wave, just a lot of people do it. And so I just thought that was really interesting that you put that in your bio, because I was like, I know exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And it'll fade, and it'll be whatever is next, right? Like, so, I mean, even years ago, I don't even remember what it was years ago because I just stayed away from it. But like everything has its wave. So like all those Louis Vuitton Supremes, eventually, whoever got them is going to be like, I can't believe I wanted to wear this, you know?
Right.
Like,
No, this is
but I mean, it has its own artistry for sure.
for sure. And so my last few questions, one that I've asked everybody on the show. So what was the hardest custom you've ever done?
The hardest material I've ever worked on is honestly that damn easy.
Okay.
It is not a generous material. It's like painting on a sponge.
Right.
And when you're on a time crunch, it's even more stressful. But like anytime I think of like it depends. Like material wise, that is definitely one of the harder ones. And the hardest custom itself.
I know it's a hard one.
Yeah, it is a hard one. I can't be like, oh, it's never been challenging. It's always challenging. I literally look at every shoe, like especially when it comes to portraits, right? Like I love doing portraits, and but even every time, I'll have my reference photo, I'll have the shoe, I'll look back and forth with them in a couple of times, and I'll be like, how the hell am I going to do this? And then literally every single time, and then I just like turn it off and get to it, and then make a million mistakes in between, and then it starts to happen. But the hardest pair. One pair that was actually really, really hard that I've kind of like persevered through was I did a pair of Red Wing boots that had portraits from Us. Have you seen the journal?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it's both characters living like in their two different personalities, if you've seen the movie, but like her face is like flawless, like I think, and also like the expression, I keep making my eyes wide because she did that, like, and getting the portrait down was so difficult because of you have this leather which has its own texture, and then you're having her face which has a different texture, but then like I'm trying to like blend the portrait into the material already there. So it was just a lot of like reworking and like kind of messing with materials and also chemicals, which was fun, but also like I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So it was a lot of experimenting. So like those kind of challenges are scary, but I like them.
Is that on your Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I will. With your permission, I will put that on the.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. No, that's awesome. I did not. I looked pretty far down your Instagram, but I'll have to look for that one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so my next question. So I have two questions. They kind of go hand in hand. So it is, what is your favorite custom, and then what is the custom that means the most to you?
My favorite customs, I mean, I've always said I really enjoy like doing like the horror movie stuff and the portraits, and those are all like the most enjoyable to make. But my favorite ones are the ones that people just give me like full creative control over, where it's like, here's a generalized theme, kind of like run with it, because a lot of customs is stuff that already exists, right? Like it's like, I love this movie, so can you put this onto a shoe? And it's like it's basically a customizing is a lot of appropriating someone else's work, right? I didn't make up Dragon Ball Z, like I just was able to copy it really well and on a different platform. So, and that appropriating has its place in art. That's pretty much all art is these days.
Right.
But it's I really like the ones where people are like, here's this general theme, like can you just run with it, and kind of like making things a little bit more abstract and kind of creating something that really has not existed yet. That I think is the most rewarding. I'm actually working on a pair of boots right now that I think might be my new favorite. So I won't divulge too much, but hopefully the time this comes out, maybe I can show them off. But that's what I've been working on lately, especially since being in quarantine, is like what I want to do with this. I love taking orders and making people's, like wildest thoughts come true onto their shoes. But I, for myself and my own work, I'm really been enjoying spending time just creating projects and like creating something that like they're kind of ridiculous looking, but like having fun with just experimenting with materials and.
Okay. Awesome. And so my actual last question. So on your Instagram, I noticed that you posted pictures of you doing jean jackets. I think you did a like a dog portrait.
Hmm.
I think I also saw a pair of jeans on there. Really my question is, do you plan on expanding into other forms of apparel, or is it just shoes, or really just what does the future look like?
I ask myself that a lot. It's that's the thing. I call sink or swim my happy accident all the time. Like I still am making this up as I go.
Right.
I'm very fortunate in the sense of like I can just kind of experiment and do what I want with it because I have other outlets in life to support myself with. But like with jean jackets and stuff, that's usually just been like for people like who are close with me, whether
Mhm.
it's weddings or the one I did recently, like one of my close friends, she's having a baby, so I was like, that's it's a great easy gift for her.
Mhm.
And the jeans, that's something I definitely want to consider doing more of. I have literally a stack of jeans in a closet that I've just been like wanting to paint. I'll just like I'm like I'm not a hoarder, but like I'm an art teacher, right? So you're always
Right.
like, oh, I can make something out of that because it's cheap and old and no one else wants it.
Mhm.
Um, I have literally like boxes of old shoes and jeans and stuff that I've just collected that I'm like, oh, maybe I'll make something out of this one day. So like quarantine has been great for that. Just kind of experimenting and getting my hands back on things that I forgot I even had.
Mhm.
So as far as like the future goes, I think it's just more experimentation. And if people like it, dope. If they don't, well, I'm still gonna make stuff because
Right.
what makes me happy. And that's and I've said this to people before, like if I wasn't making money off of this, like I would still be painting on shoes. Like,
Mhm.
I went to college to be an art teacher, but then also I got a master's in just art.
Wow.
And I remember in the beginning, I was painting on canvases and doing the traditional route,
Mhm.
and I was sitting with a professor, and she was just like, "Well, what else do you do?
Mhm.
It's like makes you happy as far as making artwork goes." And I like told her about the shoes or whatever, and she's like, "Well, why the hell aren't you in here doing that?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't think that had a place,
Mhm.
this environment. Like,
Right.
it's I keep it so separate." And she was like, "No, use that." Like she
Yeah.
like literally said that, and here she
Mhm.
like slapped me upside the head, like, this is also belongs here, and
Right.
I was like, huh, like, so this is just who I am. And then realizing like who I am as an artist and who I am as like somebody a maker, if you will. It's just like, I love to paint and I love to paint on things that are not going on a wall.
Mhm. Right.
So I like things that are mobile.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
I don't know. We didn't talk about how people were so mad that I won that episode of Jamil
Uh-huh.
and it's so like I always think of like
They were? People were
he's
mad?
oh my god, yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I didn't.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. I got a lot of love, but I also got a lot of heat because,
Okay.
his was just straight to the theme and very well painted, of course. But there was a lot of,
I mean, yours. I mean, I thought y'all both did an amazing job. I mean, honestly, like he did a really good job, but the rules were to finish,
Mhm.
and like that's the rule, you know what I mean? So if he didn't finish,
Yeah.
like, um, and no, but I thought yours was really outside the box. I don't think I've ever seen anyone like take a lace tip and put that jewel on it like you did. No, that was definitely really, really cool.
And that is what I call just living in the moment because I saw him dyeing those laces and I was like, damn, those look sick. I
Yeah.
got to put in my laces.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, as far as what called the episode, I don't know. I have to think
Okay.
about
We could call it living in the moment. That was a good one.
living in the moment.
Okay.
Or I don't know. You're the pro
Okay. I'll figure it out.
talker.
Uh, awesome. Awesome.
I mean, I really appreciate it. I love how like more people are doing like, stuff like this just to talk about what it is everyone's doing as opposed to like, like you see these things on Instagram like just magically appear and you're like, where did that shoe come from? Like even
Yeah.
though like you said, like people have copied your photos
Mhm.
and taken them. So it's like I like how this becomes like a very human aspect to like what's going on behind these posts and
For
stuff. So
sure.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. No problem. I appreciate, you coming on. It's really awesome congratulations on the win, but it's even cooler being able to sit down and like talk to a great artist and see how, really the origin story. Um, but yeah, no, that's really it. And I appreciate you coming on.
So well, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. All right, everybody. That's a wrap on today's episode. I definitely want to give a shout out to Jill and her brand Sneaker Swim Kicks for really just coming on, providing value, and of course her insights on not only being a teacher but being a sneaker customizer as well, and how to intertwine the two. As always, I'll link all of her descriptions and social medias down below. And make sure you guys check her out, and make sure you tune in for next Monday on episode 6 of the Custom Sneaker Podcast.